allowing free thinking. Don't scope it. Right or wrong is a different thing, but I'll leave that, I'll throw it on the air. Allow free thinking. Why? Cynicism in education. Lecturer, I disagree with you. Prove it. This book, why must it be Lord Denning all the time? Lord Denning. Does it mean God has not created any other brilliant? Lord Denning said, Lord Denning. How tell you that Mustafa Bello or John Smith or allow open thinking in classroom? If I have left my house and my house to come to land, they should not be sky, they should not be this evening. I should be able to question whatever you bring in down to the classroom. Right or wrong is a different thing. That's my concept of how we get education right. It will be experiential learning. Not a situation. This is the textbook that we used for the past 100 years. Who are you to challenge or who are you to use for what? That is my own concept. We'll get there. I've been fighting many universities and I've been thrown out so many times. I have never changed. So that has been my own concept of education. I love it. God forbid, I'm a very good Muslim, but I can question my faith. Is it true? If you say there's no God except God, this God that this guy is saying, is it God? So it's allowed in classroom, allow that free thinking to go. That's my point. On your point of very question, I think before the CEO clarify your answer, from my experience for 22 years in BP and 9 years in private practice before joining BP, there's always one answer to that question, which is why the West are ahead of us, taking the best and the brightest to manage talent. I can pass millions straight. Jesus Christ, when he came on board as a master, Matthew, and he said, Matthew is the tax collectors and even the people they say, when he joined them together, he's able to fix them where they belong. There's nothing like military. No, he's getting the best and the brightest to be able to even manage opposing and opposing company in an office. They will move forward and they will move the generation forward. But when you don't get the best and the brightest to be the master of an organization, he will be able to manage talent. He will be looking for gossip. He will be looking for one great. He will be the one who is in this court. Hey, you are my tribal man. Tell me what this CEO is doing. You are my mosque person. Tell me what the church is. Because he doesn't have the talent to be able to drive the ship very well. He will be looking for shortcut and creating the shortcut himself. But when you have the best and the brightest in the place, even the most people in the war front, you will manage them very well. Jesus Christ to unite the tax collectors and the something, and they are all, not only wanted to the disciples. Matthew and Peter, can they ever agree on right line? But by the coming of the master in the right place, they are the best of friends. Managing talent, putting the right squares in the right hand. But when you have man, no man in a place, I mean, the ship it doesn't wreck, it will eventually wreck.
Thank you very much. For me, I'll address your question using three things, and these three things are actually Tongston's core values also. And I talked a bit about it earlier. Personal interest, professional interest, and public interest, which supersedes the other. I can quote our current president, the matter of individual interest supersedes this, or which one supersedes the other. Generally, because we exist in localities, whether it's a state, a town, a country, or a continent, or even the whole world, public interest is always first. Because public interest means you have to also accommodate other people that exist within that ecosystem. Then, if you go down one more level, there's professional interest. So the interest of organizations, whether they're NGOs or companies, and etc. Then there's personal interest. That's your individual interest. So the way your question came is almost like, what if the personal interest of the Gen Z is clashing or not aligning with the professional interest of the organization? So that's your question. So based on the levels that I gave, the professional interest of the organization comes first. Yeah. So what the duty will then be on the organization to make sure that as much as the team or staff are achieving or trying to achieve the interest of the organization, they're also taking into cognizance the interest of the person, of the individual. That's the best way to approach it. This is also what we do in Tongston. As much as I said, those three are our core values. We make sure that as we're achieving the personal interest of each of our staff, our team member, and achieving the professional interest of Tongston, we're also achieving and also not in clash with public interests. So
Thank you, my CEO, but let me differ a bit. You know, Indians, they spend thousands of years on this earth. Chinese, the same thing. America, they are not up to 500 years. And why are they superpower? Why are they exceptional? Or Russia? I'll tell you the reason is a bit different from what my CEO is preaching. Libertarians, you know, in Harvard, let me use Nottingham example. In Nottingham, in critical thinking, we normally start from maybe if you want to train you how to critical thinking, the case of a fluid. When you understand the case of the fluid, you take it to libertarian or communitarianism that is summary of what is in the public interest and private. I'm a lawyer. A flute is a melody that gives music out. But it's one in this whole class. We have only one flute. Take the flute. Is it the person, Ben, who understands like David, who knows how to play, and when he plays, the whole generality is happy and we take it? Or is it our CEO, the Dangote here now, that has the money to buy the flute? Or is it me that is disabled? I mean, pain, or this guy need the flute to be able to stabilize and balances. Among these three people, who should take the flute? Is it the Dangote, or the David, the Summit, or me, the beneficiary, the poor man who actually need the flute more than anybody? Need basis. When you look at, that's why I'm telling you, when you look at people who progresses, they allow liberty, freedom, libertarian thinking. If one man can take us to Sokoto, why do I need 100 people to be in the bus? Who doesn't know how to drive? Who doesn't have the fuel? Who doesn't have this thing? Allow individualism to thrive with communism, public interest, private interest. Let them struggle to compete in a very inspiring environment. When you take it to critical thinking, they will tell you that there is no right or wrong answer. If it takes all of us to die than for one man to survive to the land, even in Islamic law. When I was studying in Bayero University, if two of us went into hunting and there's famine, it's better for another person to kill the one so that you eat and cry. What kind of nonsense is this? But that's critical thinking. So I do not agree all the time public interest override private interest. In critical thinking, we look at what is the best thing in this moment. Is it private or public? But if we carpet it all the time that first and primary is public, it will not go here. We will be stuck somewhere, somehow. Allow both private and public to compete in a very equal standard. If Dangote can take the economy and run it very well, good. If BP can take, good. But prove your case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, it's just one more question.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is David Ekoza. I am an associate of Edmes. I have two questions, I will rush them. Very simple questions. My colleague here asked a question concerning private interest and public interest. And I want to digress a little to a situation where you work in an organization and you know the vision and mission of that organization. And you come in as an expert, or maybe you have a different view to go about what they are currently doing. And you present this view to the board or to the managerial body of that organization. And they are not buying into your idea. I've had situations where it leads to rebellion. You understand? It is not, in quote, a private interest. Because what that staff is trying to do is for the interest of the organization. Though he's coming privately. And the organization is saying, no, we can't do it this way. And it leads to very deep rebellion because you will not notice that the staff is already rebelling against the organization. You understand? Now, how do you manage such a situation as good managers or organization? Secondly, concerning the NGO, I've discovered over time that some NGOs in Nigeria, it might not be their fault or maybe lack of strict supervision. They actually go out to these communities and do projects. But some of these projects are not meeting the needs of these communities. For instance, you go to a community and you discover that everywhere is littered, You see some people, they are not putting on their pants, they're not wearing trousers, and you go about digging boreholes for them. Meanwhile, what they actually need is literacy, not water. So there is this misplacement of priority amongst the NGO. How do we tackle that in our country? Thank you.
I'm trying to remember. The first question was okay.
Your first is when an individual visions, an opinion or idea or expertise clashes with the corporate direction. It's always a very tough time to give you a correct answer, but I will attempt to give you a correct answer in the instant. I'll give you instances how it is resolved. And let me summarize your question to the audience. It's just like a question of destiny and destination. My own view is our destiny is in Lagos. Your view is destiny is in Sokoto. So, these are two different wins now. And I'm not the boss, but this is the boss. But from my own expertise, my own vision is if we drive the organization to Lagos, we'll meet our good end here. But the boss said, we're not going to Lagos. We are going to Sokoto because Sokoto is this thing. When you have instances like this, from our contextualization context in both universities that I lecture is, you allow resilience to be the arbiter of truth. And what is resilience? Resilience, according to there are many definitions of resilience. Just like my doctor described, resilience, according to Denver, is coming every day to the work and fulfilling your top KPI and moving on. For you to live and take a taxi or to drive, these are all what you call resilience. Time will prove whether our destiny is in Lagos. Don't rock the boat. Don't cross it. If it is not me, it's not going to be. We're not going to the next bus stop. We must stop here and turn to a part or turn to no. Resilience is always the answer. Put down your idea. Document it in the meeting, either management or where. Put it down. Resilience is keep on turning the page. If I have the difference between page 6, there are page 7, 8, 9 to 1,000. We will reconcile somewhere. But the problem is don't stock it. Don't block the road. Okay, it's a PC. You must give me my change. We're not going to the next bus stop. That's where the rebellion does not solve the question. But the answer to your question is not rebellion, it's resilience. Be very stubborn, be very right in writing the right answer. Don't compromise truth, but move on to page 7. DG, minister, president, I've told you my own point. Document it, but next day come to work. If the destiny is in Sokoto, they went to Sokoto, they didn't find Emir or they didn't find the Sultan. Sultan is in Lagos. Time must be right. But with resilience, you will never be able to see the answer if you don't have the resilience skill. It's characterizing in Denver World, Colorado is coming to work every day again or to school. Don't rule the line, don't cut it. You just have problem in page 6, move to page 7. If we are coming back to reconciling page 3, resilience will be your lawyer and your doctor and your habit. God knows best.
Thank you. And on the second question regarding NGOs, for instance, serving a different need of the individual or the community, and maybe that need is not what the person is even looking for. The best thing to look at is there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but in Tongston we have a different version of it because there's also something called Clayton Alderfer's hierarchy of needs also.